best way to accomplish serious design is to be totally and completely unqualified for the job. Paula Shay.
Shay Charles.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. It's definitely such an honor to highlight you as this individual who is super successful. Thank you for being part of the show and for allowing us to be here today.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, always. So if you can let us know, you were an architect, you went into designing shoes, and now you are this brand strategist and brand designer. How did all of that come into play?
I mean, like you said, I started out as an architect, but even though I was really good at it, it wasn't something that really made my heart sing, you know? So I decided to go back to school. I went to industrial design school. It's a school called Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, and I was in the industrial design program for 4 years, and right after I graduated, at the tail end of the program before graduating, I fell in love with fashion and accessory design. So yeah, I ended up getting an opportunity to design for one of the big fashion brands here in New York. And I moved to the New York area and started out my career as a shoe designer. And while I was a shoe designer, I made some discoveries about pricing and, you know, the reason why people would pick a particular design over the other. And I made this wild discovery that even though you have two different designers who design a particular style with almost the same material, and this actually happened. The manufacturer in China or wherever it is could be churning out the same style, the same material of you know, the shoes that two designers put out, but then one is 50% or maybe even 100% more in terms of price point. So that caused me thinking back then, like, why would any customer in his or her correct, you know, sane mind pick one brand over another when one is more pricey and it's basically the same style? And I discovered that the answer to that was brand. Something intangible that you can't really put your hands on, but is very real to the customer. So someone would pick a Tory Burch over a Michael Kors, not because the Tory Burch bag or purse is of higher quality, but because something inside of them that's emotional has connected to that brand and they're willing to pay a little more. So that opened my eyes to the world of brand, and I just started digging and studying and, you know, trying to figure out what would give the brand that I was working for an edge over the other. And also I wanted to start my own accessories design company.
Nice.
So that it was an opportunity to learn how to get an edge over whoever my competitors would be. So yeah, that's how I discovered brand. And then after 2 years, I decided to go off on my own and, you know, start my own company. But I didn't start an accessories design company. I would say I went back, because right from my architecture days, I always had a fascination for graphic design, and I picked it up. So I went back to that love of graphic design and my new knowledge of a new curiosity about branding. I sort of like married both of them together and started building a boutique branding agency called Brand Plus Design.
Love it, love it. And that's how sort of found each other. But so when it comes to, I know branding has been such a huge topic, say for the past, I want to say 8 years, 5 years for some of us that are now getting into touch with this whole branding and what branding is. So if you could just give us an idea of the typical client that you would choose to work with when it comes to their brand.
Awesome. Yeah, I typically would work with fashion luxury or lifestyle clients, mostly because I already have a background in fashion. But then I would also say for clients like luxury clients, a luxury product is about 90% brand, you know, and 10% actual product.
Yeah.
So I like to bring the full weight of my knowledge and experience to a client. So yeah, they typically tend to be in those three spaces or industries. But I have worked with companies in other industries as well. But yeah, they tend to be startups or small businesses that have the passion to grow quickly, and they want that X factor that would give them an edge over their competition. They just don't want to create a great product. I actually would tell them, you know, there's a fair value where the quality of your product should reach, and you need to stop right there. Every other thing that you build should be intangible. That's what people are going to connect with. They're not going to feel any extra features or quality that you add to your product. So those tend to be my clients, the people who have those characteristics.
If you could just give us like an idea of the creative process of how you walk your clients through getting to that end result of their website or, you know, whatever it is you're using in terms of branding.
So I have a 4-stage design process. Yeah, mostly when the client comes to me, I want to do some sort of discovery. So I'm asking them questions like, who's your ideal client? If you know them, your target audience, and it could go down to such details like, you know, what time do they wake up in the morning? Do they like their coffee black? You know, things like that. Are they married? All that. And you know, and demographics, basic demographics like what age are they and whatnot. I need to know all of that, and I need to know their pain points. Why is a client trying to solve certain problems or satisfy certain needs that they have, and what are those needs that they don't even realize they have, which are emotionally or emotion based. So I need to know all of that. That's the first stage. The second stage is mapping out a strategy for how to build the brand. So how are they going to position themselves against their competition? What is their value proposition? Which is what would cause them to appeal to their ideal client or their target audience, and some other strategy answers from questions that come up in the discovery phase. The third phase would be the actual design phase, which will constitute things like your primary logo, your secondary logo, what colors would your brand have pertaining to what was discovered previously in, you know, the discovery and what was laid out in the strategy, typography, other design elements. The fourth stage could either be web design, which is digital design, or some form of implementation, which is bringing everything together in brand guidelines and whatnot, and just giving the client a roadmap that would help them to express their brand out there in the world.
Lovely. And with your clientele, are you with them through this process from the start, years to come, or how does that relationship still continue?
Okay, the relationship basically starts from that discovery phase and it ends at the digital design, or like, you know, you releasing them out into the world phase. That's where it ends. But I do have collaborators that can still help a client along the journey of them building their brand, expressing their brand. So collaborators like social media strategists, digital marketers, classic marketers at every step of the way would still be helping these clients. But yeah, typically after the fourth stage, I release them into the world in hope that they would float and swim and, you know, become a big and better brand.
That's good to know because, you know, like you mentioned, your typical client is also a startup. So for for startups can be a little bit, intimidating when it comes to having to do all of that.
Right.
So that's good. It's good to know that you don't just leave them there. So if you can tell us what motivates you, what makes you so creative, just in general.
Okay. I'm a very inquisitive person, and I'm big on learning. A lot of what motivates me has to do with like just learning more about what could make an industry better. For example, like fashion. That was my main motivation when I started, because I started out with fashion companies, was how can fashion companies of a very small scale, how can they scale quicker without all of the industry, I don't want to call it industry baggage, business baggage, like how can they scale quicker and just cut out all of the processes that they don't really need, and also how can they use brand to leverage that growth.
Nice.
So that inspired me so much. Back then I was just voraciously consuming information. I was reading 2 books a week, which basically was 104 books a year.
Wow.
Just to figure out like how can I help a brand or a business who is in this position and grow them up to become a big brand, but it might even still be a small company that only has one store. A lot of my motivation comes from there. And then I would say inspiration, not motivation, from just nature.
Nice.
And other forms of design and art. Photography is one of the things that I'm really into. I get a lot of inspiration from photography and whatnot, and it gets incorporated in the design and branding work that I do.
Would you say any of your inspiration comes from your childhood? Because I know that you, just like me, are not born in this country.
Correct.
You are originally from Nigeria, and you moved here when you started school?
Yes. I moved here for college. I would say some of the inspiration that comes from me not being a native-born American would be my ability to be very resourceful. Because growing up where I did, you had to be very resourceful, and you had to use whatever it is that you had to look bigger than you actually are, which is branding. That's what branding is.
And that's what I'm asking, because Nigerians are typically, they're very, bold and, and I love that about the Nigerian culture. So I had to ask that question.
Now, Nigerians do have extravagant parties. I don't know if you've ever heard about.
I've been to one. I've been to about 1 or 2, so yes.
Okay. Now, during the week, here in the New York area, you could bump into a Nigerian who works as a security guard, and he just looks like your regular security guard. But on the weekends, on Saturday, you will not be able to recognize him because he is decked out, from head to toe, heading to a party, and he's wearing like the best outfit. And, his chest is up, and, his posture is totally changed. And you treat him differently. You think that, this person he's not a security guard, he's doing pretty well. So that's all branding. And, I grew up in an environment where branding was a daily lifestyle. It was a daily thing.
I know you have a book with you. Would you like to, is there anything in particular with the book that you are currently reading? I know that you have, it's called Branding.
Okay, this book by Michael Johnson.
Yes.
Michael Johnson, I would say he's one of the heavyweights when it comes to branding. Before branding became as popular as it is right now, especially the strategy part of branding. There were only a handful of people who brought the design part, which is what everybody calls branding, logo design, and all that. And they sort of like smushed it or brought it together with the business part, the thinking part, and Michael Johnson was one of them. And he wrote this book, Branding in 5.5 Steps, which is a compendium of the different stages of branding. Like I say my stages are 4, his, he says, or 5.5 and a half is like the middle part between the first 2 and the last 2, which is where strategy and design meet.
Okay.
So that's what this book is about. And it's very easy to read. Anyone who's interested in branding, I would recommend it. It's got, I mean, just like any design book, it's got lots of pictures and charts.
Nice.
So it's not too text heavy. And yeah, I would recommend it to anyone who wants to get into branding.
And on that note, anybody who aspires to be as successful as you are, what advice would you give them?
I would say step out first, then think about what it is that you're doing or what it is that you want to do. Yeah, because in this day and age, people of courage get rewarded a lot quicker than people who have knowledge or expertise and whatnot. Because the moment you step out, yeah, the knowledge will come, the connections will come. If you need to go to design school, do it. Design school is pretty expensive, so you need to keep that in mind. But yeah, step out, you know, look for resources, get connected to people in the industry, and just see where that takes you, yeah?
Thank you. And how can we connect with Shay Charles?
Okay.
Where can we find you?
Right. So I have 2 websites. One website is for the company, brandplusdesign.com, and I have a personal website that has my work, shaycharles.com. I'm on Instagram, on all social media platforms. My handle is @ShayCharles, so you can find me there. And yeah, I'll be happy to connect with you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was Shay Charles. Thank you for being with us again, and we look forward to having you on more shows.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And that concludes today's episode with the phenomenal Shay Charles, who is a Nigerian-born award-winning graphic designer who specializes in branding. He is the founder of Brand Plus Design, a boutique agency that helps startups build memorable brands through brand strategy, brand design, and digital design. With more than 20 years of design experience, Shay has worked as an architect, a shoe designer, and a graphic designer, and now a branding expert. We'd like to thank Shay for taking this journey with us.